Conquest, the game that killed a studio. I know Conquest wasn't the complete reason why that Pandemic Studios ended up getting closed, but it was one of the major driving factors aside from the Saboteur and Mercenaries 2. Aside from those, this game came out in January of 2009, and it came out with very lukewarm reviews and not that big of a fan base pushing for it. Today we're going to be playing through it and giving my thoughts on how the game actually is and if it's even worth still checking out nowadays. Before we get into this, I just want to say I appreciate the support on the last couple videos, and hopefully we can get that same milestone hit, which is 50 likes on a video. I'd really appreciate if we did, because with this video, it honestly almost blew up my house because of my Xbox 360, which was pretty awesome. But let's get right into this. Conquest is pretty much like the Battlefront series that they also worked on, but in a shittier light. It's not as great as the Battlefront series with like how the Star Wars ones felt, but it was its own little unique twist to it. And when I was 12 years old just bashing my face on a controller, this game felt amazing. As you get older, it's not as great as you remember it being, at least for me personally. But we're going to talk about the single player first and go into pretty much what it's like. But the first thing that you end up doing in the game is playing a tutorial. This is where it feels like Battlefront. There is 4 different classes you get to end up playing in with this game, which is okay. 2 of them feel pretty good, while the other 2 feel kinda shit. But let's get into them. The first class that you end up playing is the Infantry. He feels not all too bad. He's not that great though. He is more of like a run in and beat the shit out of every enemy in front of him. If you hold a certain button, you can do like these special attacks as well. Like if you press B, it ends up doing like a slash attack, which breaks enemies' guards. If you press Y, it's a radius attack, and X is you sliding through the ground doing whatever the hell this is. But aside from that, it is pretty basic of a character. The combos feel kind of cool, but there's not all too many combos in this game. You'll find out as you play through. And he just overall feels okay at best. He's not that fun of a character, and he's just kind of alright. The second character you end up playing is a scout, and he is actually really fun. He actually has a whole bunch of variety of different combos that you get to do, and he can also go invisible for backstabs, which will immediately one-shot everyone. And I'm not even joking you, everyone. If you're playing against a boss, he will die immediately if you use a combo on them. If you go behind them and use it, immediately dead. He's pretty fucking OP, and I'll talk about that later in this video. The only other thing that he can do is throw bombs, which is like, okay, so he has a huge splash damage of that, and he, like I said, has a decent amount of combos, so he can beat the hell out of you and then stick a bomb to you and blow you up. The third class that you end up playing is an archer. He is okay. This is the other one that I don't really like all too much. If you press B, you shoot a firebomb. If you press Y, you shoot poison, which does damage over time. And if you press LB, it just does a radius hit with like the attack, and it feels alright. It's very basic, and if you get into melee combat, he does like this like fucking Spartan kick where he kicks the shit out of a guy and he'll fly away, which I think is kind of cool, so respect to him on that one, but aside from that, he's not all too interesting. The last class we're going to get into is probably the most OP, but probably the most fun class. It's the mage. I surprisingly do not like mages in a lot of games, but in this game, he is really fun to play. But I think it's just because I kick the shit out of people with him. He has basic attacks just like the melee guy, so he can actually run in and beat the shit out of people, but he can also do this like ground attack, which blasts everyone away from him. He also can throw a radius fireball that just burns everyone alive around him, which is kind of OP. But not even just that, he can also just heal everyone on the team immediately, which is actually insane. And it's not even just that. He also can just shoot fucking lightning out of his hands like he's, I don't even know, Thor or some shit. Just running around just electrocuting everyone. Or I guess we can go with the Star Wars character Palpatine. He's just running around just electrocuting everyone alive. The only other thing that he can actually do is put like a shield bubble up, which stops like all arrows coming in, which is absolutely insane. He's legitimately broken, but it's actually kind of entertaining in that way. But aside from the classes that you get to play, you also get to play as main characters from the original story, which I think is actually awesome to do. Like, you get to see a whole bunch of characters you would not expect to play as. Like, you get to play as Isildur during the battle against Sauron, which is awesome. I wasn't expecting to see that when I first played this when I was younger, and as I get older, I still respect that. The game is graphically okay as well. It's nothing to like write home about, but it still looks decent for what it was at the time. Plus, the amount of enemies that run around during this actually makes you feel immersed and feel like you're actually in a battle, which is really entertaining. But aside from fighting as the main characters also have a whole bunch of like unique stuff to them. Like, they don't do the same combos. They might be placed in the same class as another character. Like, Isildur plays as an infantry class, but he doesn't have all the same attack styles as they do, which I think is really cool. So they actually added some type of variety so it doesn't all feel the same, which is awesome for replayability factors, like if you ever want to go through the campaign or if you end up playing the multiplayer. But aside from the tutorial, you end up playing through the story. And the story is pretty much just the story of Lord of the Rings, so I'm not going to go all too much into what the missions are, but I'll talk about a couple of them and tell you about why they're so special or why they're so dooky. But let's get into the good campaign. Before we do though, I just want to say I'm going to be a little biased towards this game just because I absolutely love Lord of the Rings. Like, I own all the movies, I own a whole bunch of Lego sets that are all sitting around my house, and I also own the records of the music just because I absolutely love everything about the series. I've even read the books and listened to audiobooks for it, just so I could get like a general idea. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a decent amount of stuff I will completely forget, and if you see something I do forget, you can just bash me in the comments about it, because I should probably know it by now, because I've been watching and learning about this stuff since I was like 8 years old. But let's get into this. The first mission that you end up doing is Helm's Deep, and it's not all too bad. It's pretty much just the defense of Helm's Deep, so it's really cool to like reenact this whole thing in just video game form. You get to decide if you want to play it as an infantryman or the archer. It really is up to you, whichever one you think is more fun. I played the infantryman because I thought it would be a lot more entertaining defending the wall as just like some foot soldier. So while you're kicking the shit out of the people, you end up noticing how like the combat feels, and it's a bit basic. After you learn like one decent combo in this game, you're kind of going to just stick with it, which is kind of disappointing in that way. But aside from that, it does feel okay, but what is it like playing through the missions? Honestly, they're not all too bad. The game's only like 5 hours long, which is kind of disappointing. But let's get more into Helm's Deep. So pretty much what you have to do is defend the wall, or you can just jump off the wall and start beating the shit out of people on the ground. It's really up to you, really, what you want to do. But after you take out a decent amount of enemies, you still have to end up jumping off the wall and beating the shit out of the guys that are trying to blow it up. So you're just bum rushing at berserkers and beating the shit out of them so they don't blow up the part of the wall, which is somewhat fun. But after you do that, you end up heading back into the castle and you have to defend the gate where Aragorn and Gimli ended up doing it, but instead it's you doing it. It's actually kind of cool to reenact these areas, but just like as just some random soldier, so it kind of makes you feel special in a way. But after you get over there and beat the shit out of a whole bunch of enemies, the wall ends up blowing up instead during that time, which really confuses me because it kind of just like cut away from what the actual story was. Like, the wall blew up first and then they defended the gate, but whatever. I think it's just because they didn't know how to make it so, like, if you were over at the wall and it blew up, would your character die or not? I kind of get that. But also, they were shooting catapult shots at your wall as well, which is very fucking confusing. They were literally bombarding it with artillery, which never happens in the movies, and whatever. But after the gate ends up getting attacked and you defend it, you head back inside because somehow they got into the glittering caves. This is where I'm talking about. It kind of gets very out of touch with like what the story is. The Uruk-hai have never touched the glittering caves. I'm not even sure how the hell they even ended up in there, but a whole bunch of Uruk-hai commanders were in there, so you have to defend it instead. So you go back and beat the shit out of them until you kill them off, and this is where you end up getting to pick to be a hero, which is Aragorn. Now, this is where it gets very inaccurate to the story of the game. As long as you don't really care, it's fine. But, like, I personally don't care. I think it's still fun. But you get to play as Aragorn, and he already has the army of the undead. I don't know how the hell he ended up getting that, because that is way ahead of time. But, you know what? Respect to Aragorn. He's going right at it. He's the king already as well. He's already wearing his Gondorian armor and everything. I don't know when the fuck he decided to go do all that, but he did a whole bunch of side quests before getting to Helm's Deep in this game. So he's already decked out and ready for pretty much the defense of Minas Tirith, it seems. So I'm not sure why we even have to play that level, but you know, whatever. So you end up coming back out and defend the castle wall that got blown up, which is pretty cool, but it really doesn't make any sense why we go back out there. But all you have to do is go out there, wait until dawn, and then, you know, Gandalf comes down and saves the day. But let's talk about the cutscenes and stuff in this game. So the cutscenes are a bit interesting. So they're not like anything different. They show like movie scenes, so you can't really see much of these on the video that I'm going to be playing because, you know, it's all copyright stuff. But the one thing that's interesting about it is that they tell the plot, but it's with the actual voice actor of Elrond, which is really cool. At least there's one very positive about it, is at least it looks interesting, and the way they tell the plot is actually pretty entertaining, and the snippets of the clips put together make it, you know, come alive and feel interesting. Kind of reminded me of like the World at War campaign whenever they showed like live like footage of like what actually happened during the war. It made it a lot more enticing to go and look at, if that makes any sense. But aside from that, that was pretty much the defense of Helm's Deep, and it was alright. The next level you end up playing is Isengard. I'm not going to talk about every single level that's in this game, but I'm talking about the ones that are actually like key to like learning more about the game. So this one is interesting as well. You run in as Rohan and you support Treebeard in the attack against Isengard, which is kind of fun. So you just run around as whatever class you want to play. This is where they unlock every single one, which would be the Mage, Scout, Archer, and Infantry. Whatever one you think is the most entertaining, you kind of just get to pick whichever one is like best suited for the scenario that's going on, which, like I said, I really find fun. So you can run around and just beat the shit out of these enemies, and you end up having to head down into the pit and destroy a machine so that the production will stop, which is kind of fun. I kind of wish in this mission, though, you would have to go and destroy the dam to wipe them out, but you don't have to do that, which is somewhat disappointing. But you end up beating the shit out of a whole bunch of enemies and heading through it. But this is where the key things come in. Grima comes out to fight you, and this is where I'm talking about the Scout comes into play. So during this fight, you can either one-on-one him and actually have an interesting fight with him, or you can go right behind him and stab him in the back and kill him immediately. I did this with multiple bosses throughout the game. I just did not care to even actually have a fight with them because a lot of them are very OP. So it's just easier just to backstab them and then be done with it. But it just shows that this class is kind of insane. After I did that, I just went invisible and went on to the next area and they couldn't find you. So after you kill Grima, you get like the keys to go inside of Isengard. So you head up and you meet up with Treebeard. And this is where one of the more entertaining parts of the game happens. After you end up giving it to Treebeard, he's like, all right, you can become a tree now. So you become a tree, and now you just can run around just beating the shit out of a whole bunch of enemies. I thought it was very entertaining. It makes no sense, but it's actually really fun just being able to just like massacre a whole bunch of enemies in your way. Honestly, I remember when games were just about fun and just like doing stupid stuff, and it really makes me upset that like games nowadays don't do stuff like this. I sometimes just want to feel like I'm just some special dude running around just massacring 40 dudes without any like pushback from the enemies. It just has like that special feeling to it, at least to me. But after you do a decent amount of killing, you end up grabbing a flag, and this is how you head into the next location. But before we get into that, I just want to say most of these missions is just you capturing objectives and blowing something up. And you'll notice that it's to get you ready for the multiplayer, which is kind of boring in a way because I just don't understand what's the idea of just taking the flags and then just pushing on. It makes it feel a lot less eventful, at least in my opinion. But after you do a decent amount of that and end up taking out the enemies on the flag and taking it, you can play as Gandalf the White and you go and kill Saruman as Gandalf, which is okay. I don't know what's with this game and just like randomly just throwing in stuff. But this is one thing I want to talk about before we get into this. The voice acting of these main characters is atrocious. I am not sure who they hired for this, but you just have to hear this.
You have elected the way of death.
But you will notice throughout like playing the good campaign, almost all of the voice actors are not all too great, aside from Elrond, but that's just because it is Elrond. So you can't really expect all too much different. But it was kind of entertaining going through this mission, but then it kind of gets confusing when you get into the next ones. The next one is Mines of Moria. It is really cool to at least play through this area and play as Gimli and stuff, but you pretty much reenact, like I said, the scenes from the movie. I kind of wish that they, instead of like having like all this like conquest idea, like for Helm's Deep and stuff, play as an infantryman, but when you play like the Mines of Moria or stuff, it should just be hero oriented where you only play as heroes. So it makes sense to like what actually happened, because when you have it like just have a whole bunch of enemies just running around from like Gondor inside there, it makes no goddamn sense. But you end up fighting through the Mines of Moria, and then you end up fighting the Balrog as Gandalf again, but Gandalf the White this time. So it's just like, what the hell? How did he come back to life? None of it really makes any sense, and I don't think they really tried to write into why it would make any sense, but it's kind of confusing and a little frustrating for people that actually like read the books or watch the movies, because it's just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. This plot makes no sense. But after you do the Mines of Moria, you head on to the next mission, which is Osgiliath. This mission's really fun as well. I think it's one of the better ones that ends up having like you play through. The only thing that's really confusing is the horses, but I'll get into that in a minute. All you have to do is just pretty much defend the river for a little bit, and you head off, and then you have to defend Frodo. So pretty much what you have to do is get on a horse and you ride into battle to kill a whole bunch of enemies. I think the horse riding is okay. It feels a little clunky, but this is where it kind of gets confusing. If you're playing as an infantryman, you not only not just use your sword, like you don't use your sword on the back, you pull out another sword out of your ass and decide to attack the enemies with that one. I don't know where you get the sword. I don't know why you're using a different sword than the one you already have, but yeah, that's another thing that actually happens, and it's just so, it's odd little things like that just that kind of happen throughout the game that just kind of makes no sense, but it's somewhat funny and charming in a way. I don't know why. For me, I think it's kind of still entertaining even if it doesn't make any sense and the plot doesn't really fit either. But you play through a decent amount of this mission and you get to end up playing as Faramir. You would think he would be a hero that would be an archer class because, you know, he was an archer with the Athelion, but of course he's not. He's a swordsman. Duh, you should have known that. I think his brother should have been in this for Boromir, so he could have been a swordsman in like a different mission, but for some reason he's an archer. So, I mean, swordsman. I don't know why I got that mixed up, but it's, yeah, you're playing as a swordsman when you play it as Faramir. So you just defend Frodo. He ends up heading off to a certain level to get out of the city, and it's okay. You defeat a lot of enemies throughout the way, and you'll notice that the game is starting to get very frustrating when it comes to like challenge and stuff. Mostly if you're playing on heroic or the higher difficulty, it just starts feeling like you're getting kind of overwhelmed every battle, and Minas Tirith is the worst showing of that. While I do love the mission where you get to play through Minas Tirith, it is really exciting to actually reenact this area because I always watch the movies and we're like, oh my gosh, this is actually amazing. But when you're playing through it, it is so goddamn frustrating. So you have to defend this one point right when the game starts, and they send in like 50 to 60 troops all at once to attack you. It would be alright if it was just like the small grunts that they have in the game, but it's like the swordsman classes just all running in, and those guys are pretty goddamn tough if you're not ready for it. They will whoop you in almost any battle that you end up having with them. As long as you're not like sticking around multiple of them, sometimes you'll end up getting juggled around by 2 to 3 of them, which gets very annoying. And I'll even show that on the screen of me just getting juggled around, and I legitimately have no chance of doing anything about it. But yeah, the mission Minas Tirith is a shit show from the beginning all the way to the end. It is pretty frustrating. After you have to defend a little bit of the beginning of the gate, you have to deal with a whole bunch of trolls that also come in, along with the other 40 dudes that are trying to attack you all at once. And even if you are able to push through all of that, you end up having to head to take out siege towers. This part's not all too bad, but the rest of the time you are running from defense to defense, and it's like a 5-minute hold where you just have to sit at these points and defend it from ongoing waves over and over again, and it gets kind of excessive to the point where it's not even fun. It's just a pain in the ass to deal with. And one big gripe with this game is if you fail, it completely restarts the mission. It's really annoying because, you don't want to fully restart a mission after spending 10 to 15 minutes playing it, but this game doesn't really care about that. They're like, okay, you're going to have to restart from all the way from the beginning, which is pretty goddamn annoying. But aside from that, this mission's really cool just because it's fun to actually defend Minas Tirith, and I always wanted to in a game, so it was at least exciting in that light. But on to the next mission, Pelennor Fields. This one's okay. You get to play as Rohan soldiers. They're in pretty much the attack when the Oliphants start coming in, and siege towers are still pushing through as well. I'm not sure what the fuck's going on with that, but pretty much what you have to do is still take out the siege towers while you're on the battlefield and the Oliphants. It's okay. This is where Rohan's leader Theoden comes in, and his voice acting is atrocious, just like the rest. But you end up fighting with him and taking out these Oliphants and the siege towers. The siege towers are pretty goddamn annoying to take out because anytime you kill the troll on it, a new one will spawn to push it again. So you have to be quick about it because they will one-shot you, and they will also kill you while you're placing the firebomb to blow it up. But then when the elephants start coming in, you get to play as Legolas if you want, and he died immediately when I played it. It was awesome. I walked over to grab onto his leg like you do in the movies, because you can do that in this game, and it wouldn't let me press the button, so I just got stomped and killed. And I was like, okay, well, that was fun. And I wasn't able to play him again. And then this is where the Witch King of Angmar comes in, and this was a pain in the ass to fight. Most of the bosses in this game are pretty goddamn frustrating if you are not trying to just backstab. I ended up just backstabbing him just because I wanted an easier time. But if you're not doing that, these bosses can be a really big pain, which is a good thing, but also a bad thing in a lot of different ways, because you have that special ability where you can do those special attacks, but you only can do them within a certain amount of time. But with the bosses, they just spam it out. They just don't care. They'll just keep spamming the same thing over and over again. And one thing with the scout character, they can see you through your cloak. They don't care that you're cloaked either. They'll just walk right up to you and start beating the hell out of you. And it's just like, what's the point of having a cloak that makes you invisible if every enemy can still see you? But let's get on to Minas Morgul. This mission's pretty cool. It never happened in the movies, but it was cool to actually go and siege it. You end up taking out the Nazguls that are there and push through the gate. This is where the first time you actually get to use a battering ram as a defensive group, which was I guess the good guys. So you actually are the attackers this time around, which is kind of cool. It's not a long mission. All you have to do is break the gate, get inside, free some prisoners, and then take out the rest of the Nazguls and their crystals around the map. And that pretty much wipes them out. It's okay. It's interesting. I wasn't expecting to see something like this, but it was fun to see a location that you actually didn't get to see in the movies. So you always get to see the exterior, but you never get to see the inside. So it's fun to see creative liberties taken and coming up with ideas of what actually it would look like. I really like that. But on to the last mission, the Black Gate. This one is a fucking nightmare. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea, but they have a wave thing that happens with the gate right at the beginning, and they just don't stop spawning trolls. I'm not even joking. There was 6 or 7 trolls running through the gate with a whole bunch of enemies, and it's almost impossible to keep up with. I just don't understand. Unless you're just backstabbing the troll over and over again to get on a one-shot with the hero, you're not going to have a good time. That is one good thing about this mission. You get to play as a hero the whole time. There is no normal class to play. You are a hero no matter what, which makes it pretty entertaining for the last mission. You end up pushing through the gate and taking a couple camps. I'm not that never really happened, but it's okay. But you just run in, just take a couple camps, and you have to kill these commanders that are up on archer towers. These are fucking annoying because they have quote unquote health on the watchtower to break them, but it doesn't actually break them if you break them down. At least it didn't break them down for me. I'm not sure if it was just glitched out, but if you also try to climb up there to get them, they for some reason would just fling my guy off, so I could never actually take out the enemies up there. So I had to switch to Legolas to take him out because I was playing as Gandalf. So it pretty much forced me to play a certain class to actually deal with this, and then I was able to go back to playing him. But after you do that, you end up fighting the Mouth of Sauron. This was kind of fun. He has like 8 million health, and he can also heal himself, so it ended up dragging on for a decent while. But after you do that, you end up just defending the last little point, and that's the end of the game. They show you the destroying of the ring, and yeah, that's what wraps it up. The good campaign in this game is not that great, but the evil campaign, on the other hand, is amazing. The one special thing about this game is honestly that you get to play as the evil campaign after you wrap up the main story as the good side, and it is actually really entertaining to go through. The first mission that you end up playing, you play at Mount Doom, and you have to go and kill Frodo as one of the Nazgul. So pretty much your objective is to fight through a whole bunch of orcs and get to the Witch King's mask and fill it with dead souls. For some reason, the orcs have turned against you and are trying to revolt at the last second, which makes no sense, but okay, we'll go with it. But you end up going through them, killing a decent amount of them, and bringing the Witch King of Angmar back. And pretty much all you have to do is go up to Frodo and beat the living hell out of him. One thing that's kind of entertaining about this part is you can kick him into the lava of Mount Doom, but it won't give you a mission fail. I wish it kind of did, but yeah, you can end up killing him, and you take the ring back and you give it to Sauron. Now, the only frustrating part about the Mount Doom mission, honestly, is the beginning with the Angmar, like, building of the mask. Oh my gosh, getting that kills is so annoying because you have other Nazguls that help you, which is very fun to have like all of them work together to take them out. But the issue is if they get the kills, it doesn't count towards the mask. So you have to get all these kills separately. And if they just run up at the last second and kill the enemy, good luck, because that is technically their kill, so it does not count towards the objective, which is so frustrating. But aside from that, I really enjoyed this mission. Now here's where it gets kind of interesting, and this is where I'm kind of fine with creative liberty just taking a hold of like the actual story, because this never actually happened in the original story, so they can kind of just fuck around and do whatever they want with it, which I thought was kind of cool. So pretty much what happens after Sauron gets the ring, he is able to resurrect every enemy that died throughout the campaign after you killed them, which doesn't make any sense, but I am completely fine with. So Saruman is now officially alive again, the Mouth of Sauron is as well, and every other evil creature that has been killed is now resurrected. So now pretty much what you have to do is push back and take back these areas with the evil group instead. So you head to Osgiliath after Mount Doom and do pretty much the Siege of Osgiliath again. This one is a lot more entertaining as the evil campaign. I don't know why, but all the enemies just feel a lot more like, I don't know, they're just a lot more enticing, and the combat feels even better. Even though it's literally the same stuff, it just feels better as the bad guy. Maybe I'm just an evil person, I don't really know, but it just was a lot more entertaining playing as the evil side of the game. But after you end up doing a decent amount of like pushing through enemies, you end up having to head to Faramir to beat him. But before you do, you get to play as the Mouth of Sauron. And oh my god, this guy is fucking OP. When I was younger, I thought he was actually really terrible, but as I gotten older, I understand the controls and stuff. He is insane. He does so much damage with his base attack, and then when you use his radius attack, instead of it doing like a blast away for the troops, he does like this wombo combo on the enemies and just completely wipes them out. And I'm like, holy shit, he's really OP. He gets to heal as well, he does this shield bubble, everything about him is just broken. And I think it makes it really entertaining like how they set it up with the evil campaign. Just like everything is just way different from the main story. And honestly, maybe the good campaign would have did better with just doing whatever they wanted. I understand they threw a couple like random things in there for like the good campaign that never actually happened, but I think there wasn't enough branching out in the good campaign to make it all too interesting. While the evil campaign did completely the exact opposite, where everything is different and somewhat enjoyable to go through. But after you end up heading through Osgiliath, you end up having to ram down a door with Mouth of Sauron, and then you get to Faramir. And oh my god, he lasted 2 seconds. He died almost immediately from the Mouth of Sauron just because of how strong the character is. But after you do that, you head to Minas Tirith, and this is where your next battle goes on. The sieging of Minas Tirith, oh my gosh, it's so much cooler because you actually get to go up to the White Tree and stuff. So you're fighting around that area instead. So you actually just fight a whole bunch of different Gondorian soldiers as you go through until you get through a decent amount of them. And this is where you get to play as a troll. The trolls are awesome. Like, they just feel so much cooler than the Ents. I'm not gonna lie, maybe I'm just a bad person, but the evil campaign just feels so much cooler. The enemy variety feels so much better. And so do like the troops that are literally the same thing, just copied and pasted onto the enemy team. Just feels so much cooler. I don't know what it's about. But after you end up doing a decent amount of killing through this, you do the same thing kind of, where you just kind of push through, you end up breaking the gate, and you go and destroy the White Tree. You get to play as Sauron on this mission, and honestly, it's kind of cool to play as Sauron. He has a couple different movesets as well, like his blasts do a little bit more of a damage radius, but his fireball, instead of it like laying a ring on the floor, it actually just does it's like a bomb coming out of his staff, which is really cool. And pretty much all you have to do is just burn the tree with him and then head inside and kill a whole bunch of Gondorians. And honestly, there's nothing else to this mission, but it was still fun enough to keep me like just like entranced onto the mission and wanted me to I wanted more right after I finished it. The next mission, you go through the Mines of Moria again, but like I said, it just feels 10 times better on the evil campaign. So pretty much what you do is just fight through a whole bunch of enemies, but when you get to these certain ones, they have the Horn of the Balrog. So you have to fight them and kill them, but they have a lot of health and they do a shit ton of damage, which adds like a unique twist to them. So if they hit you, they like blast you away like with this like explosive damage. So you have to make sure to keep like some type of distance between you and them. And after you end up fighting them and defeating them, you pick up the horn and you have to fill it with souls. So pretty much what you have to do at this point is just kind of defend yourself by picking up the horn and killing them. But now you have the power that the Gondorian soldier did. So now every attack you do as an infantryman literally just blasts the enemies away. It does so much damage and it kind of makes you feel fucking cool. It's insane the like ideas that they came up with this and like how unique it was like compared to the good campaign. It just, even though it's still just kind of basic, just like these little add-ons that they threw in for this felt so much cooler than what they did in the good campaign. You just kind of go through the same level that you did in the basic one, but just as, you know, Mordor orcs instead. So you just kind of wipe them out, get the souls filled into the Balrog, and then you get to play as the Balrog. This was fucking awesome when I was younger. The Balrog sucks, but it's cool just to be able to play as him. Every time I play as him, I get my ass whooped, but it's still cool to see him. He just has too much of a hit radius for enemies to like beat the shit out of you, so I always do terrible with him. But pretty much all you have to do here is kill Gimli, and after you kill him, the mission ends. That's another thing I really like, is that every mission kind of has like one of the main characters get, you know, killed off. It makes it a lot more exciting throughout the campaign, so that like it actually has this effect, and you can be like, oh my gosh, I just killed off Frodo and stuff like that. But one other thing I want to say is the cutscenes and stuff are so much cooler, and I love the way that they try to mess around with the cutscenes to make it look like the death where it happened in the movies and stuff. It was kind of cool. It doesn't look all too right, but it's still awesome nonetheless. The next mission that you get to play is the Siege of Weathertop. This was awesome. This was by far the best mission in the campaign, at least in my opinion. Not only can you decide which class you want to play, you also get to decide if you want to play as a troll or be an Oliphant. This was awesome. Being able to run around as an Oliphant, like shooting the explosive bows off it. I don't know where the hell they got those, but it was cool. Just like blowing up everything around you and just using the tusk to wipe out the ends and stuff and destroying the catapults that you need to destroy looks so sick. But also just running around as a troll, just massacring through all the Gondorian soldiers, just feels so satisfying. It just honestly, it's just a good mission altogether. The boundary of the map is absolutely huge. It's the biggest map that you actually get to play in, and it just feels like it too. It's like a whole battlefield actually going on. Pelennor Fields kind of gets that, but it's not on the same scale. Weathertop is by far the best feeling when it comes to like what an actual battle should feel like. There's not only Ents running around, there's trolls, Oliphants, and just basic troops all running around in the same area, and it feels like you're actually in a battlefield. But aside from destroying the catapults, the mission is still pretty basic. All you have to do is destroy those, take some flags, and then you have to kill some commanders to get to the last fight. But I will say it was still really entertaining to go through this. But after you do that, you get to fight Aragorn at the top. I ended up cheesing the hell out of him, and I played as a troll, and I just kind of stomped him up on the top, and he couldn't do anything about it. But after that mission, you get to head into another mission I think was amazing, which is the Siege of Rivendell. Oh my gosh. And you get to play as my favorite faction, the Uruk-hai. It's the first mission that you actually get to play as the Uruk-hai, so it was really refreshing to see it. They just look so badass. I always loved them during the movies. The Two Towers is by far my favorite movie, just because of them. But it's just cool just being able to play as them and just pretty much massacre all the elves that are left. It's pretty much fighting off the last line of elves, which is so cool. So you just kind of go through, Rivendell, defeating them, and this one's a little bit unique as well. While you're going through, you take one flag and then take another, but then it gets a little bit different from there. You end up having to set a placement for explosives to blow up this tower. It makes it a little bit different. It adds a little bit of variety to this mission. But after you do that, you have to go inside and destroy all of the history of the elves, which I thought was so cool because that is something that the Evil campaign should have had. Is something to destroying records and stuff would be something that they would do. And even if they did lose there, all the records are now destroyed. So pretty much all of that history is gone, which I think is awesome. Aside from that, you end up finding Elrond, you beat the shit out of him and steal his ring, and you bring it back to the beginning of the spawn, and this is where you get to play as Sauron himself. This was sick when I was younger. It's still cool now. Just running around as Sauron, just making troops fly away with just one swing, it makes you feel like you're in the movie, just being able to just swing and just massacre a whole army in front of you. But after you end up becoming Sauron, all you have to do is go through a whole bunch of enemies, take a flag, and kill Legolas, and you also get to kill Elrond, because somehow he escaped before that. So you and him fight again, and oh my gosh, they beat the hell out of me. They killed my Sauron, so I had to play as some basic troop again, and I fought through it and killed them, and it was interesting, because after this cutscene, because Elrond is the voice actor, he even talks about him dying as well in the cutscene, which was interesting. But this comes into the last mission, and that is the sacking of the Shire. This is so cool as well. I'm not going to lie, the last 3 missions of the Evil campaign could not be any better than what you actually got. So pretty much what you have to do in the Shire is burn down hobbit holes and just pretty much just go on a rampage. You get to play as a troll if you want to. It's the same stuff with that. You also get to try out the Balrog again at this part, and you also get to play as Sauron again if you want to. But what makes this one unique is you just destroy the huts, but then you go and kill Treebeard. There's no flag taking in this one. This is the only one that doesn't have that. So after you take out those and burn Treebeard alive, you end up heading to a bridge, and your objective is to kill hobbits. That's one thing that makes the mission unique as well. All of the good campaign troops are pretty much wiped out, so it's only hobbits. So every enemy that you end up fighting is actually pretty damn easy to kill, which I think is like very fitting for the end of the game. So once you end up defeating a whole bunch of hobbits and pushing through, you head into the last area, and this is where you get to fight Gandalf. I was so excited to fight Gandalf as Sauron, but then this happened.
No one will stop us.
Sadly, a bird ended up flying by and annihilating my ass, so I didn't actually get to fight him as Sauron, which would have been so fitting, but oh well. I ended up just burning him alive as a mage, and that was pretty much the end of the game. You get one last cutscene, and it talks about how the evil people have pretty much endured and wiped out pretty much all of life, which is very cool. I honestly thought this campaign was so much better than the good campaign, and rightfully so. It was so unique and different, and I'm happy that they actually took their time to actually go and make a different campaign for this, because without it, I think I would have left this game with like a more of a sour note. But aside from that, there is a multiplayer. I'm not going to go into it just because the multiplayer is completely dead, and it's just playing through the campaign missions, but on a different, just playing through them as just whatever mode that you want to play. Like if you want to play the one where you just take flags and stuff, you can do that. But it's just playing as infantrymen or whatever may be, and just doing that instead. Or playing a hero mode where you get to play as heroes and just wipe out the enemies as that. But aside from that, that's it. That's the wrap up of the game. The game is fun. It just wasn't that much there. Even though I had a lot of entertainment playing through it and playing as a whole bunch of heroes from the movies, that's pretty much all you can really get from this game. The combos and stuff are very basic, but they're fun. The classes are basic, but also fun. Everything is just kind of basic. And that was the only thing that really just drives the game down, at least in my opinion. But if you really enjoy this game, I will say there is going to be a remaster of this coming out. It's a modded version, so it will only be on PC. But if you are ever interested in getting into it, there is someone that is working on something for that, which I'm completely excited to check out when that is officially done. But that's going to wrap it up for me, guys. If you guys enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like and a sub. And if you have suggestions for anything else to check out, make sure to leave them down in the comments down below. But I'll see y'all next time. See ya.